Hey, everybody. This is Mitch East interviewing Osvaldo. Osvaldo is a part of our Longhorns for Christ campus ministry, and we are so delighted to have him for this interview for our adult Bible class called Race and Grace. Um, each of these interviews is going to be focused on people's experiences, their actual stories, and sharing what they've been through. And I'm going to ask everybody, including Osvaldo here, just to tell us a little bit, a kind of quick version of their story, who they are, who you are, who your family is, and what you do. So tell us a little bit about yourself first.
Hello, y'all. I'm glad to be here with y'all. So I am Osvaldo. I am currently a University of Texas student. I study architecture at the University of Texas, and I came here to the United States at the age of 7. I was born and raised in Mexico till then, and since then I've lived here in the United States and attended all grade schools, high school, and now in college here. And yeah, I joined Longhorns for Christ about 2 years ago. Whenever I found them, my freshman year, late in my freshman year, and since then I've been very welcome in this community, and I'm grateful for that.
So, Osvaldo, a lot of people have been thinking about racism since the death of George Floyd, but we know that racism doesn't affect everyone in the exact same ways. So, we just wanted to hear from you about how racism has affected different areas of your life. So, the first question, just kind of the first area I wanted to ask you about was what has been your experience in school, whether that was high school or college, with respect to racism?
Yeah, so of course, I'm not of black color. I am brown color, but that's definitely a different race than white, and I have been affected growing up throughout the years just because of my color alone. Throughout different experiences in high school, there was one instance where I had a so-called friend who asked me if I had citizenship, and I'm sure that question only arises because of my color and nothing else. Because I was literally one of the most brown people in that high school and in the bus, and I never thought about that. I knew I may be asked later on in my life about it, but I never thought about it coming from a friend or something like that. And then she later, and I asked her why, and she answered, "Well, I just don't want to be a friends with a Mexican who doesn't have papers or something." Um, and that really affected me in a way to begin thinking about: is this how I'm sometimes seen? Am I just seen as someone who, by the looks of their colors or identification, who cannot be accepted just because of that, and not because of who I am or who they've come to know me as? um, and that that sometimes that has impacted me in my life, coming up to college as well. Yes, thinking about who do I belong to, which communities can I participate in, these communities that are mostly white, or can I join these kind of organizations where I don't see much of my color, or should I go and look for organizations that represent me more? Should I go try and see if I can fit on other places more that will accept me more? But those have been my experiences growing up and through education.
So I'm curious, you mentioned that bad experience with your friend got you thinking about how welcome you were, got you thinking about your skin color. Do you feel like you were very much aware of that cultural difference before that question, or do you feel like that question got you thinking about it for the first time?
I think I may have been aware of it, but not in the sense that it was in my community, that it was around me, and aware. I was aware that it happened. That even in just learning through high school, that it happened many years ago, and it still kept on happening here and there. But I never heard it so close to home, to where it impacted me personally. And I think that's whenever I really began thinking about, okay, so this is really just happening everywhere, not just in certain areas of the country or in certain areas where, there's a clear difference of race. But it happens everywhere.
Yeah. Okay, so the experience showed you that this was not a problem in another place or in another time period, but right now in your community, and not just that, but with a close friend.
Yes.
Okay. Um, Out of curiosity, kind of moving away from your experiences in school, have you ever been in a workplace environment where you feel like you've experienced racism?
I have not been in a workplace environment where I've experienced that, but through the process of applying to working, in places, to trying to find a job or just an internship, I've kind of felt that racism impact, or that kind of difference of you're a different color, so you may not be accepted, or you may be declined this, and you may have a lower probability of getting into this area. I've applied to different jobs, I've applied to different internships, and they've all said no to me. And the only job that said yes to me is where they were all Mexican. Like everyone that worked there was all mostly Mexican, and there was only 1 to 2 white people or of different color in that area, and they were all friendly and they all welcomed me. But that has also impacted me in the way of saying, am I gonna only be welcome where I can feel at home because of they are like mostly the same color that I am, or can I also be welcome in areas outside of that where I'll be a minority, but I'll still feel welcome. So those are some of the questions that the workforce has raised for me.
What do you think you've experienced in the church? Has there been instances of racism that obviously go beyond school, go beyond the workplace, or even attempting to be in the workplace, but you've experienced from fellow Christians?
Yeah, I haven't had that instance yet. I haven't had an instance where I've personally been, discriminated against because of my color. I don't feel that I've had any discriminations thrown against me. But everything that I've said before, you know, from my schools and from the workforce, and just all those areas that have impacted my life, has carried on to this place, and my Christian values as well, and just everything that I believe. And it's definitely a question that arises sometimes. I go to two different churches. I go to a church that speaks Spanish, and I go to a church that speaks English, and I definitely see the difference. I definitely see the difference of both language, of color, and just the traditions and everything that continues. We all believe in the same God. We all believe in our same beliefs, to be saved and who saved us. But yet it's still different in a way that I feel a different environment happen both of the two churches. So there's definitely, I feel like there's definitely a difference, but I haven't felt, that anyone has been directly racist to me or any sorts of that kind.
Okay. What would you say are some of the differences that you see between the two churches you've been involved in?
Um, I definitely seen mostly in the churches that Spanish churches, like they're definitely more welcoming, no matter what your color is, and no matter where you come from or who you are. I feel like they don't see, they see past what you look like. They look for what's inside you, not for what you look like. um and I feel like that's different in white churches, that's different in most churches that are prominent white. I feel like I sometimes feel like I'm excluded from things. I sometimes feel like you know they're not always, like, the whole community isn't close enough together, um, to where I can call them all my family, or say, oh, I know everyone from my church or so. That may also be a factor of just the size, but I have clearly come to see sometimes that I sometimes feel like I'm alone at church. When I go to these churches, as in of like, oh, I'm joining all my other family together.
Yeah. How would you say that um, racism has affected friendships? Because we're kind of going through different areas in your life. We've talked about schooling, we've talked about the workplace, and just the whole interview process that you've been in. You've talked about not necessarily experiencing direct discrimination, but kind of different cultures and different traits between churches
Mhm.
that are predominantly white or predominantly Latino. How would you say your friendships have been affected by your skin color or background?
Um, I think there have definitely been some differences. Again, I guess just mostly culturally impacted by the different communities that people grow in. I think one of the biggest impacts of my friendships it's seeing how privileged other people of white skin or you know people who were mostly raised here, how privileged they are and they have been, through their lives growing up, and how they haven't seen this in their lives and how they haven't been impacted to speaking to other friends of color, how they've struggled a lot and how they also understand me, just going through some of these struggles, being impacted by a community in a negative way, not
Mhm.
being privileged enough to have private lessons or to have someone to help them there when they needed help. Um, but again, it has definitely built me and helped me grow more. Being surrounded by different people of color, I've come to realize, that yes, I wasn't privileged to have all these nice things growing up, or, to have the great opportunities that other may have, but yet that has helped me to grow and to understand what I've been through and to help share with other people, to help them understand as well that, you know, um, that we don't all come from the same places and we all go through different struggles, even if it's not directly seen or directly impacted towards them. It's definitely something that's still going around, and it might hit home sometime soon or not.
Yeah. How the word privilege has been used a lot over the past few years and decades. How would you define that word privilege?
Um, I would define the word privilege as in not having equal opportunity for the same color, um, for different bases. Yes. One can clearly tell from my accent or from my color that, I don't speak perfect English. That, as of someone who's white, they may be seen as someone who has had more opportunity, someone who has had more chances at, um, feeling more rightfully here, I guess. Another privilege is again something that bigot that has risen is just police discrimination against people of color. Um, there's definitely been a fear of police in my community because of our color, in my family as well. Whenever an accident happens, we don't call the cops first. We have to figure out what we want to do, and it's just that fear because of we're of a different color. As to where white people, that's the first thing they'll do. It's like they know for sure that nothing's gonna happen to them, and we saw an incident happen a few months ago about that, which
Yeah.
heartbreaking that that's still going on, but I think that's still part of that privilege of being white, knowing that you have it above everyone else in a way. That you have that there's still a hierarchy going on, and people just based on their color. Um, there's a higher probability. There's a higher chance that you might get hired because you're white. That you might get to go to a certain school because you're white. That you might get to survive because you're white. And
Yeah.
it's a privilege.
Yeah. That's helpful. Thanks for clarifying that. You mentioned, the past few months and George Floyd. How has that whole tragedy impacted you?
Um, it has impacted me to, to realize and to pay more attention to the Black community. Definitely, I think it's something that is there, and then people are aware of it. People are aware of that large scale racism, but it's not something that you really begin to move on or that you take a stance for until something large like this happens. You begin to realize, like, okay, I should do something to change. Uh, First of all, myself, and then second of all, those around me in my community. It's definitely, uh, an alarming scenes and just these things that happen, these, in the world. It's something to take action upon. Um, my family isn't very well educated and they question a lot, but thanks to me, me able to understand all of this, I'm able to tell them that this is what's going on in the world and this is why they are doing this. It's, it's not because, oh, just because the color, one of the colors died, they're just mad. It's not that. It's it keeps on happening, over and over and over again. But it has impact, personally, it has opened more of my questions to people, to, I guess, to speak more freely about what race is really. Um, it's difficult to talk about it, especially in communities like church, communities who hit close to home. But I think it's definitely alarming and time to really speak out, time to really have these conversations openly and freely without being afraid of what anyone may say about you, because it's time to really un, you know present yourself and who you are. It's time to not be afraid and to speak out, not just for yourself but for those of other colors, and also for those of white people, those white people who also support this movement, who are also being hated against. Even they are discriminated at times, just for being white.
Um, I wanted to shift here at the end to just two questions about what you would encourage of two different groups. So, first, what would you want to say to white Christians right now in particular, if you had kind of a message that you wanted them to hear? And then the second and final question would be, what would you want to say to fellow people of color?
Um, well, yeah. To first off, to speak to the white people of the church, to the white church, yes, in general, the white community, is to open your mind. We learn so much in history. History books, through history classes, we learn about racism. We learn about the bad things that has happened. Whether it's in this country or other countries, racism is the same thing all over the world. But to continue seeking more of that knowledge, to continuing going out into your community and asking your local uh, friends of color, your local churches, around you of color, what has there been their experience? How can we help, and how can we become more aware of this? How can we avoid ever doing this again, moving forward? Because again, it's definitely something that continues. It's not something that is just taught in a history book and it's left there. It's something that's gonna evolve throughout time if we don't stop now. You know, now it might be, just police discrimination, but later on it might be something else. It might be bigger or may be smaller, but it's still going to be there. So I just say that to continue seeking and to researching about this, to continue following, in faith in, yes, through the words that God has told us to continue loving each other, with your hearts, um, to be there for one another, um, even if it may be difficult for you because you've never seen someone of color or because you never interacted with someone of color personally. I would say, give it a chance. Open up your doors to someone and begin that friendship, begin that relationship of brother and sisters coming together. Um, and to the people of color, I would say, don't be afraid of white people. Don't feel like you're always discriminated against because maybe sometimes, again, they just want to give you a chance. Maybe sometimes they just want to hear you out. So I ask that you also open the doors, that we all come together and we all talk, have these conversations one on one or one to a group. And let's just ask each other, how can we help each other? How can we come into equal levels where we all have the same opportunities, we all have the same chances. There's no feeling of someone being less than others or someone feeling that they're above anyone else, because we really aren't. There's only one person who's above all, um, and that's God. So I just ask that we all open up each other with full hearts, and we all accept each other who we are. Um, and again, do no wrong to your brother or sister.
Mhm. Well, thanks so much for taking time with me, Osvaldo. This this kind of interview is so crucial for us to understand where we're coming from. So I just want to say thank you for
Of course.
being just so truthful and honest. We need more of the truth. So just thank you so much.